Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I'm Vulkan, and today lots of free-to-play players are getting their SSR selection boxes. So I want to talk about what the best one to pick for you would be to help round out your team. Now, just remember that Nemesis is not a part of this box, so I won't be talking about her in this video since she is part of the limited banner. So to get the SSR selection box, you do need to reach 700 points in the newcomer event. Now you can earn points here by using Vitality, opening password chests, logging in each day, etc. So if you haven't been doing these things, please get started because you need to claim this box within 21 days. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's talk about the weapons that we get to choose from. So I've broken this video up into a couple parts. One, the top tier weapons that you can get, you're gonna be able to build a team around any of these. And then these also depend on what role you want to play. So I'll have some damage, some tanks, some healers. Number two, we have support picks to help round out your already established build or your team. And then number three, some top tier pairings if you want something kind of new. So let's get this whole thing kicked off with our pillars, right? These are the characters that you really can't like go wrong picking. Like they're top notch for their category. So first we have Samir. She is an absolutely stacked DPS character that is immediately viable even at 0 stars. She brings some really high damage to the table, isn't necessarily difficult to play in PvE, and if you want to build a badass DPS team, she needs to be your main weapon. Now second is King. This guy has the highest shatter in the game, very strong damage, and is able to be played by almost anyone. He has arguably the strongest aerial attacks behind Samir, and because he is a fire element, he also burns and has a lot of use outside of combat and exploration as well. Now third is Coco. This is our super healer. She provides some incredible healing power for your team with both her skill and her passives. And eventually she does provide damage boosts as well if you invest heavily into her. So with a strong set of passives to unlock through gifting, Coco is really just built to keep a team alive. Now the fourth one is Huma. Now she is easily the best tank in my opinion. She comes with some great taunt, knockbacks, discharge, and after reaching her 1 star, she gains a stacking shield buff to help keep her alive. And if you invest into her with her gifts, she gains another stacking buff that is incredibly powerful as well. So these characters are all locks in my opinion. They're the great ones to pick to build a team around, so pick the one that kind of fits your play style if you don't already have it. Now, if you already have one that you do like, then we can start building your supporting cast to prop up what that character does best and help cover up some of their weaknesses. So let's start off with Samir. So just off the cuff, if you want a DPS build, the best DPS build, then you can go for Nemesis and Tsubasa as the pairing. This is gonna greatly increase Samir's overall damage, but since we can't pull Nemesis, let's talk about Tsubasa. So Tsubasa has the Icewind Arrow bow, and while her damage is not comparable to Samir, she's still pretty strong in that department. But what really sets her apart is her 1 star and her awakening traits. So when she gets her 1st star, she unlocks a passive that causes all of her dodge arrow attacks to grant a plus 5% damage buff, which stacks up to 3 times. So for very little investment, very little, and a very easy skill to trigger, you can get a 15% damage boost that's nearly up all of the time if you play it right. Now, when it comes to her awakening, she has Rainstorm and Raging Waves. Now, both of these will increase her attack each time she deals damage, which ultimately results in a 25.5% attack increase, which is added on top of the 15% damage that she gets from her dodge arrows. So if you activate everything, you're looking at a 40.5% damage increase, which is just insane because it's such a low ceiling to activate all of this. And this is why Tsubasa is just on another level as a buffing machine and why she is meta for almost every damage team out there. Now, another good pairing for Samir is King. Since she and Tsubasa have great charge, but absolutely awful shatter, then you need to get someone who can help bust those shields. King is literally the best at this. So if you have Samir and Tsubasa, you can choose King to help round out a really great team. Plus, he also helps provide some great damage, and since he is fire, you can use him for exploring as well, like we mentioned. And if you want somebody besides King, you can take Meryl since she has the 2nd highest shield break in the game. Now next up, let's talk about King. So we've already covered his kind of top pair tierings with Samir and Tsubasa, so let's talk about some alternatives. If you aren't a fan of Samir, you could go with Crow as your main DPS, but just know that positioning is kind of a big deal here. Lots of his overall damage comes from behind attacks. So if you can't get behind the target and backstab and really kind of dig in, then you're going to be shorting yourself. He has very high damage, but very specific attack requirements. Now, if you want to roll with a debuffer instead of damage increases from Tsubasa, you can also pick up Shiro for her physical damage element. This is going to apply a vulnerable debuff to the target, increasing all damage taken for a short period of time after using her discharge skill. Now, this is more of a help to yourself and the team, so if you want to go down that route, Shiro is a good choice. So next, let's talk about Coco. So Coco, I love this character. So this character is a top tier healer, top tier support. She provides awesome healing, weapon charge, and eventually some really nice damage boosts as well if you decide to gift and use her. So if you fully invest in her weapon and her character, then you have like a Swiss Army knife of support. So who does she pair well with? And that's going to be Zero and Shiro. So Zero is a great utility healer. He offers a steady stream of small heals, but his real power comes from his ability to shield himself and teammates with his skill. So this skill is going to apply a shield equal to 800% of his attack to himself and allies, which helps a ton with damage spikes from bosses. But to get started, Zero does need some investment. He really doesn't have heals right from the get-go. You need to unlock his 1-star to start seeing those. And for him to become a truly valuable member of the team, you need to at least get to 3 stars, which is a huge requirement. So the reason you want to get to 3 stars is because this unlocks a passive that'll reduce his skill cooldown to 30 seconds and restore health every second that the shield is active. To take this even further, if you can reach 5 stars, then you'll start seeing damage orbs for yourself and the team, which help provide even more support and utility for yourself and others to push through boss phases. So while it does take some investment, Zero can be a strong supporting cast member for Coco. Now, as for Shiro, she brings shatter and debuffing to the party. Just like we talked about earlier, Shiro is a physical damage type, which brings a vulnerability debuff and applies that to targets whenever you use your discharge skill. And this causes the target to take 20% increased damage for a short period of time for everyone attacking the target. So again, they're just helping everyone out, which is always a good thing. Now, lastly, we have Huma the tank. So Huma is all about taunting and shielding herself against attacks, but she also has some amazing awakening traits you can unlock through gifts. So these awakening traits are going to cause Huma to gain a fortitude mark every time she takes damage. Now, these do stack to 12, and when you use a weapon skill, these will be consumed to grant a shield depending on how many marks were used. So really, she has tons of different ways to protect herself, which is great, but we do still need to bring some extra utility to the party to help kind of round out her tool set. So this is where you have 2 choices. You can go with lots of shield break, or you can go with self-healing. If you choose shield break, then you can pair her with Meryl and King. Both of these characters bring very high shatter to the party, and in King's case, he also brings some really good damage if you need it. But if you're tanking, it's probably best to keep Huma out to soak up damage and taunt, so I can't see you flipping to King to just unload for too long. Now, if you want self-healing, you can pair her with Coco or Zero, and then Meryl. Now, I would recommend Coco here if possible. Her cast and forget heal is great, plus when you dodge with her, she summons a healing bee that'll help provide trickle healing to yourself and others. She's just a great option. However, if you don't have her, then Zero is another solid one to pick. He has his large shield skill, and this is great for absorbing spike damage. And while he does require a little bit of investment, if you have it, you can get that big self-heal when you cast his shield too at 3 stars. Now, the reason we want Meryl in here no matter what is to keep that fortitude resonance that gives some great boost to shatter, damage, and aggro. So keeping that is super important as a tank. So make sure to keep her in there. So those are all the top picks and pairings for each pick to help you pick the SSR you need or the one you want from the selector box. Now, if you want a high-level recap, here is a list. You have Samir, King, and Tsubasa as a team. You have King, Samir, Tsubasa, or King, Crow, and Shiro as a team. You have Coco, Zero, and Shiro as your healing team. And then your tanking team is Huma, Meryl, and King, or Huma, Meryl, and Coco. Now, you have some strong candidates to help round out the teams if you want. So let's say you have a lot of these characters, but you're missing some key pieces. Tsubasa is great for large damage boosts. Zero is great for shields. Shiro is great for shatter and debuffs. And Crow is good as an alternative for high DPS. So folks, I hope this has helped you make a decision on your SSR box. I know it can be incredibly overwhelming to just pick one and not know if you made the right choice or not. So hopefully this has helped you out. Now, if you like Tower Fantasy content, please consider liking and subscribing. It helps the channel a ton when you do. Thank you all so much for watching. And as always, this has been Vulkan, and I'll talk to you guys next time.